record so that we have this for posterity. But just so you know, while this is being recorded, the chat box is not part of the recording. So what you share in the chat box will be visible to those in the workshop, but not those who are watching this on repeat. And I will just repost the link for downloads. And the chat box is also great to let me know if you can't hear or if there's any challenge with the visuals. And we'll go ahead and get started. Let me close my door because I'm getting some other noise. I think I just locked my cat out on my porch, but that's okay. So hi, everybody. It's 2 o'clock and we're going to go ahead and get started with the immune boosters because we have 15 different things to cover today. So I know most of you are at work, at home. Go ahead and mute yourself if you haven't already. And I'm going to whiz through a bunch of content. I encourage you to take notes. I encourage you to ask questions in the chat box, and I'll try to address those either during the presentation or at the end when we'll have some time for Q&A. And I also encourage you to chat in as I go through each of the 15 immune boosters. You can chat in some things that work for you in that topic, because in these sessions, what people share, the folks in the room or in the virtual room, is just as valuable and important as what I share with you. So please use the chat box to share other ideas and things. And I've got the chat box open here, so I'll be looking down at that. And I'll be sharing my screen with you, which I'm going to start now. So we are recording. Okay, good. I sometimes forget that, so I want to make sure. And I started with this poem that is by Reverend Lynn Ungar called Breathe, because it brings me peace, and hopefully it can bring you peace too. And I'll ask again, just take a few deep breaths so that you can center yourself and be present right here, right now in this moment, to learn about immune boosters, a critically important, life-giving topic during a pandemic and at the beginning of flu season. One of the ways our nervous system responds is through breath. It speaks. Breath is the language of the nervous system. It doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak Spanish. So if I say calmate or calm down to you when you're upset, you're not going to necessarily automatically get calm. But if you breathe, that's the language of your nervous system. That, even Lynn Ungar says it in this poem, don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry. I didn't say to be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. And that's because that's how we communicate with our nervous systems. So we're going to talk some about nervous systems today, but mostly the immune system. And I will say too, I am not a doctor, but I am a longtime health nut, and I spent a long time in the nonprofit world where I burned out a few times. I did not always treat my body or mind or staff, frankly, as healthy as I could have. And I never got tips at work on how to be more healthy. So I have to basically create the curriculum now that I wish I had had when I was doing all of this. So I am a trained yoga teacher, and I have been a vegetarian 30 years. So I have a lot of personal practice with some of this stuff, but I'm learning every day, just like you are, about all of these things. So hopefully there will be some new things for you today. Hopefully there will be some review things for you today. And hopefully you'll have some questions as we go and some resources to share so that we can really make this a community thing. So just to make sure your chat boxes are open, tell us if you've eaten like a piece of fruit or a vegetable today. Go ahead and put that in the chat box so that we can see if your chat boxes are working and if you can hear me okay. So let's see if any fruits or vegetables pop up in the chat box. I'm waiting. An apple, excellent. Okay, so somebody can hear me. That's great. And it's apple season, y'all. I don't know if anyone's gone apple picking. I have not, but socially distanced activity. Grapefruit salad with tomatoes. That's lots of vegetables. Some banana. admitting no fruits or vegetables yet today. I bet after this presentation, you'll run out and get some though, because there's a lot of good stuff that can build your immune system. So to continue, I want to make sure you understand the goals of the webinar so I can meet your expectations. We want to review the science of immune boosting tactics. We want you to discern your best personal immunity strategies. Everything I talk about today is not for all of you. And we want to consider habit changes. So it takes a while to build healthy habits. You can't just change your behavior overnight. So since we're at the beginning of the flu season and in the middle of the first wave of a pandemic, this is a really good time to change some of your habits. So I want you to consider today, what's that going to be for you? What are the habits that you're going to change? And I also encourage you to set your goals really small, because if you try to change everything in your life at once, or you set your goals too high, then you're going to set yourself up for failure or relapse or feeling bad about yourself. And that is not where we need to go. So why this? Why now? Because we're super scared. We are masking ourselves. We're keeping ourselves indoors. We're keeping ourselves in bubbles. And that affects our physical health. That affects our mental health, which affect everything. And so the stress that we're feeling, the fear that we're feeling, creates unease. It creates dis-ease or disease. And we want to sometimes limit our mental exposure to all of this stuff that we're exposed to, but we also want to limit our viral exposure. So we don't get exposed to as much viral particles, but we are going to inevitably be exposed to flu virus and coronavirus. So we have to build our immunity so that we can resist those viruses taking root in our body and creating disease physiologically in our body. So what I often talk about is how physical health, this red bubble, which is how you move, what you eat and drink, and then how you rest. That's your body, how you take care of your body. But then mental health is even more important, and it's all of the good stuff about, family and friends and art and parenting and pets and music, but it's also the challenges with family and friends and parenting and pets, and things that are bigger challenges like depression or addiction or anxiety or oppression in our society. And those mental health indicators are incredibly important to our physical health and vice versa. But I say red plus blue makes purple, which is that when we talk about our physical health, we talk about our mental health, we're going to have stronger team health. And that team might be your family. That team might be your work team. That team might be your group of friends. But the point is, when we make ourselves vulnerable by sharing physical and mental health challenges, we also inspire empathy in others, because we're not the only ones dealing with these challenges. People can relate. And when empathy is generated, that builds trust. So while a lot of times at work, people don't want to talk about their physical health or their mental health, but my contention is if we do talk about it, especially in a safe space or well-facilitated way, we're going to create more trust and more team health as a result. So that's why I do this, and why I do it with workplaces specifically, and even more specifically with nonprofits and schools, because those are folks that are trying to change the world, that are under a ton of stress. And of course, that's the world that I know. So this is the just a glimpse at the immune booster sheet that is available on the nonprofitwellness.org/resources website. And you can, like I said, download it in English or Spanish. And these are the 15 that we're going to go over today. So that can be your reference list later. And then this is the other tool that I suggest for you. It's the personal stress prescription. And this is just part of the things on the list that you see on the screen. But the personal stress prescription is just that. It's for you only. And some of these things you might need to increase your dosage of, your self-medication. And actually, this is a little bit different. The one you'll download translates the pleasure principle, which is basically addictive pleasures like screens and intoxicants, things that we definitely use for stress release, but that we can go overboard sometimes. So the key here is to indicate for yourself what you're going to do in these areas, and then give yourself a deadline, and then see how it goes, and then adjust. So that's how I suggest you use this sheet. You can take notes or whatever on it. So let's dive right in. This is my favorite immune booster, and there's a ton of research. I'm going to throw some research at you today and some stories, and I even have some visual aids to hold up. So there'll be a number of ways that I demonstrate why these things are important for immune boosting. But basically, getting outside is one of the freest, easiest things and safest that we can all do right now. And that is because we can get vitamin D outside. And I'll say why that's important in a second, plus vitamin N, which is just a fake name for nature. So there's a lot of study that shows how nature it works on our immune system. So for example, in Japan, there's a practice called Shinrin-yoku, which means forest bathing. And one of the studies in Japan is actually in the 80s, showed that walking for 40 minutes in a cedar forest lowered levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone that we release when we're stressed, and compared to the same amount of time walking in a laboratory. And so this early research about trees and forests led the Japanese to create a term, forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, but also led to a lot of other research, which has turned into a whole field called ecotherapy, and this sort of calling nature vitamin N, because it's very important to our mental and our physical health. I'm just going to look at the participant list, make sure everybody's on mute. Great. So another example of research, a study here in the US in a Pennsylvania hospital showed that people in rooms that looked onto a forest healed faster from surgery, had fewer negative outcomes, and took fewer pain injections than those whose rooms faced a brick wall. So that's just looking at nature, not even being in nature. And, you know, there's a lot of studies about how walking, even just a 30-minute walk once a week, can lower your blood pressure. And then there's all of the studies about plants themselves. If you're really into plants, read The Overstory by Richard Powers, or The Hidden Life of Trees by this German forester. Fascinating stuff. But they're discovering that plants emit aromatic compounds that help that cause changes in our physiology that are related to strengthened immunity. So those are just a couple examples, and hopefully reasons for you to get outside as often as possible. Quick walks around the block. Frankly, I never walked around my block before this pandemic, and now I walk around the block several times a day to clear my head and just get some air. So the other reason to get outside is vitamin D, and low vitamin D is linked to respiratory problems. So this is a respiratory disease. The flu is a respiratory challenge. You want to build up your system as much as you can to fight off respiratory inflammation or viral challenges. And vitamin D specifically helps us make antibodies and boosts our immune response. So vitamin D is produced in our skin naturally from the sun, especially in this time of year, summer and fall. In the winter, it's a little bit harder because you've the 37th parallel, et cetera. But right now, go outside and get natural vitamin D from the sun, but also invest in decent vitamins. Vitamin D is one of those that's like very fragile. And so my son came home with this like cheap form of vitamin D, which was like from a drugstore. And while it's the right sort of IUs, it's actually not being readily absorbed by your body. And so unfortunately with vitamins, you sometimes get what you pay for. And I started this, I'm not mentioning names because I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I started a mail order vitamin service so that I could get higher quality vitamins at a regular rate. But I just caution you that vitamin D is one of those like finicky ones that there's a droplet thing that my doctor used to recommend for the kids, that you just put one drop in water and that's enough, as long as it's high quality. So invest in good quality vitamin D, go get it for free from the sun, and get your vitamin N from outside. So that's our first recommendation. And you could stop there and go do those two things and you'll already be boosting your immune system. But wait, there's more. Mushrooms. It would make my mother laugh so hard, as well as my former partner, if they knew how much I talk about mushrooms now, because I've been a vegetarian 30 years, but for 25 of those years, I did not like mushrooms, which, as you can imagine, is a tough thing. And so Ron already said that he ate mushrooms already today. So Ron, you're like the superstar, because you've already boosted your immune system today. These are one of the healthiest foods you can eat. And I'm about to play the first minute of a video, and I'll put the link in the chat box so that you can watch the rest of it later if you want. It gets into super jargon, so we're just going to watch the first minute. And then I'll tell you a few facts about chaga shiitake and turkey tail mushrooms. So let's just watch the first minute of this video. Oops. There we go. Hopefully.
There's lots of products that promise to boost our immune system, and who wouldn't want that? Well, there's millions of people with autoimmune diseases, inflammatory diseases, and allergies, right? Millions of people whose immune systems may already be a bit too active. I try to make sufferers of seasonal allergies feel better by explaining that having an overactive immune system is not all bad. Individuals with allergies have a decreased risk for cancer compared with the general population. Yes, your immune system may be in such overdrive it's attacking things left and right like tree pollen, but that heightened state of alert might also help bring down some budding tumors in the body. So it's tricky. We want to boost the part of the immune system that fights infection, while downregulating the part that results in chronic inflammation. And mushrooms may fit the bill. There are thousands of edible mushrooms, though only about 100 are cultivated commercially. Only 10 of those really on an industrial scale, and I do mean industrial, rising to over 20 million tons, and for good reason.
Sorry, I muted myself. We're going to stop there, but I put in the chat box the link if you want to watch the rest of that video, because it is fascinating, but it goes into some medical jargon. I also wanted to give you a break from my voice from time to time. But there's a lot about mushrooms that are amazing, especially chaga, shiitake, maitake, and turkey tail mushrooms. These are the ones that I recommend for strongest immune support. So for example, turkey tail is one that has a high level of what are called polysaccharides. We'll say PSK for short. And that is the #1 cancer-fighting medicine sold in Japan, is the PSKs from turkey tail mushrooms, because it's way more effective with way fewer side effects than chemotherapy. So just as an example of the medicinal power of, in this case, turkey tail mushrooms. But chaga has the highest amount of antioxidants and melanin of any substance on the planet. It also contains a high amount of zinc, which supports immune function. So chaga is great. Shiitake is great to support the immune system because it has high nutrients like B vitamins and vitamin D, which we just talked about, selenium, niacin, and 7 out of 8 amino acids. So shiitakes also, the higher enzymes in shiitakes mean that we can better absorb the vitamin content in all of our food. And again, this is coming from a former mushroom faux, and so I also want to give you, and if you have some favorite mushroom like recipes or dishes, go ahead and put those in the chat boxes so people can see some different ideas. And I want to share a few visual aids with you. If you don't like mushrooms, my training partner Taisha hates mushrooms, so I bought her this and then I smeared the bottle. It's a mushroom blend. It's just a tincture that came from the mushroom guy at my farmer's market, and it has maitake, turkey tail, shiitake. I kind of smudged it, cordyceps, oyster, lion's mane, all in here, and chaga, all in here. So you can just drop this in some water and you don't have to chew the yucky fungi. Or my son ordered these, and he's 17, and he really liked them, shiitake mushroom crisps. So these are dehydrated, and they're kind of like, dare I say, potato chips, but they're made of mushrooms. So this is a different texture and quite enjoyable. I really like the mushroom crisps. And then finally, mushroom jerky. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of these people. These are just things I like. This is made from shiitake mushrooms, and it's a vegan jerky. So that's what it is. You know what jerky is, so just like that, but with mushrooms. So if, like me, you're not a big fan of mushrooms, you can still get your mushroom superpowers by eating them or consuming them in different ways. Oh, and there's mushroom powder. You could do mushroom coffee. I've gotten mushroom powder and put it in my coffee. And then, mushrooms and onions are a must on steak, says someone in the chat box. So if you have any other mushroom suggestions besides the ones I've shared with you, please share them because, again, I won't give you many mushroom recipe ideas, but I'll give you some alternatives of ways to get them without chewing the fungi. So moving on, number 3 is laughter. And I can't stress enough how important it is to engineer moments of laughter in your life during this pandemic. So if you're like me and you do not have a partner, you have to engineer laughter by watching funny videos or calling up your friends who will make you laugh or calling up your friends and making them laugh because there are a lot of medicinal benefits and physiological studies we've done about laughter, but the most compelling is that it creates endorphins, and this is a natural painkiller for physical pain and emotional pain. In fact, endorphins, when they were discovered by scientists in the 70s, named it after morphine because endorphins act naturally on the same receptors in our brain that morphine, the pain-killing drug, acts on. And endo means inside, like inside our bodies, and orphin is the same root as morphine. So they named it after this popular drug. So laughter creates endorphins even when you're faking it. So I'm going to ask you to, I'll make sure everyone's on mute. I've just muted everybody. We can't hear you. Go ahead and fake laugh just to yourself. You have to hear me fake laugh. Oh, it's also a great test to see who's not on mute. If you fake laugh, then you actually are creating endorphins. Your body kind of knows the difference, but like nature, you don't have to be in nature. You just have to look at nature for your body to get the benefits of it. So this is a case where fake it until you make it absolutely is important to remember. But there are other ways that we've studied laughter, and so I'm going to throw a few scientific terms at you because there are measurable changes that take place in your body after you enjoy a good laugh. And some of them are that we've measured that the activity and the number of NK cells, which stands for natural killer cells that attack tumor cells and viruses, that increases when you laugh. Also, you get more helper T cells. We'll be talking about T cells when we talk about exercise, and that helps organize the immune system's response to invaders. There's also an increase of the antibody immunoglobulin A. There's more gamma interferon, there's more B cells, and more complement 3. All of these things help the immune system or the lymphatic system, which we'll talk about later. And this has all been studied and measured as a result of laughter. So in the chat box, I'd ask everybody to share while we keep talking, share the things that make you laugh, specifically like the ones that aren't only in your house, like your dog or your nephew. Maybe it's Hannah Gadsby, or maybe it's a specific meme thread on Instagram. But what are the things that reliably make you laugh that you would want to share with others to encourage their laughter as well? Laughter, I mean, humor, it's personal, right? But I even find that like sometimes I'll watch Rachel Maddow for some news, and then sometimes I'll watch Trevor Noah because I just want to laugh while I get some, some other take on the news. So if there's somebody that really makes you laugh that you want to share with others for this very important medicine, please put that in the chat box as well. Great. So this I just thought was a funny meme. We're in the midst of a tragedy, which is that over 215,000 people now in this country have died of COVID-19, and that's a tragedy. The definition of comedy is actually tragedy plus time, but we can experience comedy in the midst of tragedy, and I think that's important as well. So moving on, working out. So I want everybody to get up. We're going to work out right now, just a little mini thing to do with the help of my training partner, Taisha, who couldn't be with us today, but go ahead and stand up. Nobody can see you. Your cameras aren't on. And we're going to do some squats. So go ahead and start to squat if you'd like. I'm going to play Taisha's sort of leading us through some squats here.
So we're gonna do one of my favorite exercises today, a squat. So exercise is one of the ways that one of the things that bring me joy, and also watching other people do it. So it brings me a lot of joy. So get a little space, okay? And I'm going to show you the position first. So watch first. I want your feet to be about hip width distance apart, okay? And then you're going to push your hips back, pulling in your belly button, push your hips back, your chest up. This is squat position, okay? When you come up, I want you to squeeze your glutes or your butt, okay, and push it forward. And we're just going to go down. Okay, keep doing the squats. I'm going to talk, but you're going to keep doing squats. Okay, so what's happening right now? So while you're squatting, right now, you're activating your thighs. Your glutes are being activated. Okay, keep going. Don't stop. Yeah. Okay, your mood is going to start to change. Okay, blood is circulating. This helps prep you for everything that you're going to do during your day, whether you're sitting and then going to a standing position, right? Whether you're picking something up, it's still working. Now hold it. Just hold it here for a second. You know, you can put your arms up. You can put it down. Those quads are activated now. Stay down there. Stay down there. Again, you're working on your mobility. You're working on your balance. Keep that chest up. You're nice and proud right now, okay? This is helping you with your daily movement. And guess what? You can do squats anyway. You can stand up at your desk. You can stand up while you're teaching at the...
All right, I'll stop you there before she goes into the music and she does more like side to side and squats, but you're welcome to stay standing for the rest of this presentation. I encourage you to stretch out, do some thigh stretches while you're standing, do whatever you need to do to move around or to relax or to stretch while we're talking about this stuff. I want you to be comfortable, but also sometimes challenge your body, challenge your body to release and mobilize those T cells, right? Which happens when you exercise, or to release some cortisol, which is the stress hormone that builds up in our body unless we complete our stress cycle. So working out on a regular basis boosts the immune system by mobilizing these T cells, and they are a type of white blood cell which guards the body against infection. Now, I will say that overdoing it on workouts can weaken the immune system, which would leave you more prone to flu and viral infections. So I really want to emphasize moderation in exercise, but regularity. So again, walking around the block, taking that 30-minute walk, doing some squats during a meeting, stretching out with some gentle yoga, or any kind of dancing or exercise that in a moderate form is going to boost your immune system, your T cells, but overdoing it can actually be harmful. So do be aware that of where you are and challenging yourself. And then that brain scan is a very famous Chuck Hillman scan of just after 20 minutes of walking. Look at that rainbow brain. And that's the brain that I want to bring to my stuff, right? To my writing, to my work, to my presentations. I took a walk before this presentation, so I would be like alert, right? That's the kind of brain that you want to bring to your family, to your best, work. And then I mentioned dancing, and I put a 4.5 in here because dancing to music or working out to music is going to give you even more brain benefits. And why is that? Because music is actually kind of a full brain workout. It lights up different parts of the brain at the same time, because the instantaneous process of taking apart rhythm and melody and structure and words and then putting it back together so that we experience that moment of music in our brain engages multiple cortexes of our brain. So we know that playing music especially, but just listening to music is already a workout for your brain. And if you're doing that to physically move, whether it's a workout or dancing, then you're getting that woken up brain because of blood circulation and the benefits to your immune system as well. So I really encourage music, incorporating that into your life and finding excuses and engineering that as much as you can. So I'm happy to, take questions as we go. So, thank you so much for some of those laughter. We got a link for dad jokes. Those are usually safe for work. So that's a good one. Thank you. So if you have, favorite ways to incorporate music into your life, or favorite tricks. Everybody has their own personal tastes for music, but please share those. Also, Taisha and Gabby, I'll say my training partners are both workout leaders, and they put a lot of energy into their music lists for their workouts because they know that it gets people pumped up and that it's really fun. It's like going to a concert, going to their workouts. So number 5 is less like direct for your immune system and more about habit change. And so really briefly, we go over this more deeply in a different training. The cycles of habit change, people describe this in different ways, right? But we like this 6-step thing. You're already kind of like in number 2 for some of these immune boosting habit changes because you're here. You're not sure what they're going to be, but you're contemplating it, right? If you were in the pre-contemplation stage, you wouldn't be here right now. You'd be working on a memo. But you're in number 2. Maybe you're already in number 3. You're prepared. You're ready. You're set to make changes. And then 4 is action. So, maybe you're filling out your personal stress prescription with something you're going to do differently by the end of the day, by the end of the week. And then action, go. You're going to maintain that behavior for a little bit, and you're probably going to relapse. I don't love that language, but because it implies failure, and that's not failure. It's just a natural part of the cycle. But at some point, you're going to not maintain your behavior, and you're going to not feel bad about yourself when you do that, because you're just going to go back to, okay, let's contemplate how we can do better next time. It's probably that you need to set a smaller goal. My favorite example of a small goal is 1 push-up per day. Not 10, not 5, 1. And when you complete that 1 push-up every day, whether it's on your knees, whether it's just a few inches, whatever that push-up looks like for you, you finished your goal. And you're going to get a dopamine hit in your brain, and then you're going to want to do it again the next day. Maybe you'll do 2, but you only are required to do 1, right? So set your goals really small so that you have a great chance of achieving them and setting new habits. So that's the best advice I have on habit change. But Dan Pink also weighs in. He has a great book. Some of you know Dan Pink. He's actually here in the DC area. He's written many books. He has one called When, The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing. And he talks a lot about habits and breaks and all the things that I talk about all the time. So he says you have to start right? Choose the right goals. You have to start again. So you have to plan for the fact that you're not going to keep it up forever. And starting together really helps. So if you can get a buddy for your habit change, if you can get somebody to hold you accountable and do it with you, or checking off something, or maybe it's like a team step challenge, like those are all ways that a team can help you achieve your goals and change your habits. So what's your team care? What's your support system? Who's supporting you in this habit change? So I'll give you an example. I always want to practice more yoga, but I'm actually pretty undisciplined about like doing it at a certain time of day or doing it a certain number of minutes. And a friend of mine said, well, me too. So we're going to text each other tomorrow morning. We actually have a date for Thursday morning where we're going to both be on FaceTime or Zoom or Google Meet or whatever and just practice together. I'm going to do my thing. She's going to do her thing, but we're both going to be there on the screen and we have an appointment. So it's going to happen. That's my support system for tomorrow for yoga. So that's an example of how you can set something up. And then again, if you say you're going to do X, starting with a certain date, right, make it time bound with the support of Z. You can do this for a physical health resolution and habit change. You can do it for a mental health resolution and habit change. Like, hey, I'm going to tell one joke at a work staff meeting, by the end of the month, or whatever it might be. Just a small goal that you set as a time-bound goal with the support of someone else is one of the best ways to set your goals. So if you have questions, stick them in the chat box. We are going to move on because we're already on number 6 and we have a lot to cover. So plants, some of you have already eaten some plants today, which is fantastic. And again, I can talk about plants forever, but the things that I want to emphasize today are that you want to have prebiotics in your diet, you want to have cruciferous vegetables in your diet, and you want to have fermented vegetables or plants in your diet. So prebiotics are basically fiber, which is just a playground for the bacteria to play on. And if you don't have enough fiber in your diet, you won't be able to colonize the probiotics, the good bacteria that your immune system desperately needs. So cruciferous vegetables are cancer fighters, but they also provide that fiber and that good bacteria to grow on. They're also high in glutathione, which is an important micronutrient for fighting off disease especially. And then those vitamins that I listed, A through E, also specifically help strengthen the immune system. And we talked about D being a great fighter for respiratory illness. So eating plants, a diversity of plants, is going to get a whole bunch of different vitamins in for you, but make sure and all of them really have fiber. But fermented foods, things like pickles or kimchi, tempeh, miso, kombucha, it's all listed here, they literally already have probiotics in them. And so if you send them down to the playground of your fiber in your intestines, they will colonize and they will reduce inflammation in your body and endorse or promote your immune function. So focusing on those kinds of plants is really important because your liver has to help detoxify your body. But these things will help your body and your gut achieve the right biome for strengthened immune function. So number 7, your liver, again, like you really need your liver to detox your body. So don't overload it with too much alcohol, because then it's working to detoxify the alcohol and not the invaders that might be threatening your immune system. So everything in moderation. I used to drink more than I liked, and so I cut it off because that was just easier for me. So I haven't had much to drink in 3 years, like a toast at a wedding or whatever. But that doesn't work for everybody, and that's fine. Like, alcohol is a super important stress reliever for some people during a pandemic. I totally get it. But just note the smoking and the drinking and the ways that it can tamper with either your respiratory system or your immune system and your liver. And then, look into moderation, because that's always good for everything. And I don't know as far as research on THC and CBD. I do know, though, CBD is now legal. I have this CBD balm here. Can be really good for sleep. A lot of people use it for joint function, anxiety, a lot of things. There's just not a ton. There's more and more research on CBD now, but there's not a ton about THC and how that impacts the immune system. So we just don't know. But tobacco and alcohol, we know more about. So sleep. Hopefully you can get some sleep. I don't know if there are any new parents on the call, but if you can protect your sleep, if you can improve your sleep, this is one of the cheapest, easiest ways to boost your immune system, because lack of sleep reduces those fighter cells, the T cells in the body. And so you've just got to have your body in peak form when you're fighting off disease. Some ways to improve sleep. And Arianna Huffington, by the way, is a devotee now and an evangelist about sleep. She has written a whole book about it. This is her sleep manifesto. So if you would like more on sleep, please visit Arianna Huffington's books, writings, blog posts, TED Talks, etc. And if you want some tips for better sleep, the internet's full of them. I recommend melatonin. Very cheap. It's a natural way to sort of wind your body down. You can also do Sleepy Time tea, has valerian, and this one has chamomile and valerian. There's tinctures. This is a relaxing sleep tincture, which also has valerian, passion flower, catnip, and chamomile. Some people rub CBD oil into their feet before sleep, which is great for reflexology and sometimes for relaxation. Working out in the morning or afternoon, especially, maybe not right before bed, will help your body get tired enough that you'll fall asleep and have deeper sleep. And then Yoga Nidra, I'll put that in the chat box. It's up on the screen, so you know how to spell it. But that is a yoga sleep practice, which is guided meditation. And there are plenty of practices on YouTube and Spotify that you can access for free. Yoga Nidra is, you can even fall asleep while you're listening to the meditation, and it works on your subconscious even when you're asleep. So these all help reset your circadian rhythms and promote better sleep for strengthened immune function. And then be idle, take rests, take breaks. One of my favorite writers is Tim Kreider, who said that idleness is not just a vacation, an indulgence, or a vice. It is as indispensable to the brain as vitamin D is to the body. Vitamin D again. And deprived of it, we suffer a mental affliction as disfiguring as rickets. So in this like go time, especially when we're not commuting, we don't have like that idle time in our schedule anymore. And I'm here to say, please engineer it. Engineer idle time for yourself if possible, because that idleness will give your brain a rest, hopefully. It will give your body a rest, especially if you're not sleeping well. And it will engender usually creativity, because if you're not sort of scheduled to think about something or do something, you're going to have new ideas. So be idle too, in addition to getting good sleep. So we're going to whiz through the last 6 because I want to save some time for questions, but also because these are things that are going to appeal to some of you and not to others, and that's fine. So the lymphatic massage, and this can also be accomplished through yoga. Yoga postures are called asanas, is really great to move your lymph, which is a fluid that contains infection-fighting white blood cells. And so this little diagram shows parts of the lymphatic system. And the thing that I was so moved by is my mom has a lot of sinus issues. And I sent her just a video I found on YouTube with a guy doing lymphatic massage of his head and neck area, self-massage. And you do it on both sides. And she did it and said, she only did it on one side, and she called me and said, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I can't wait to do it on the other side. And I don't have the sinus issues she does, but this is a really important way to boost your lymphatic system, which is really important for fighting invaders. So if moving your lymph and lymphatic massage is something that might be interesting to you, I encourage you to, I don't have like a specific video because there are so many. So please look for lymphatic massage videos on YouTube. And yoga, especially, inversions like downward facing dog is a great posture for stimulating lymph in the body. Many postures in the yoga practice help with that. So that's a really important part of your immune function. And then mindfulness is a little bit different from meditation. Mindfulness is really just about non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. So you can be mindful right now. You can't really meditate right now, but you can be mindful and be fully aware of my voice talking, and of your seat sitting in a chair, and of where your feet are on the floor, and of how the temperature is in the room, and what you're tasting in your mouth, or what happens when you pick up and drink some water, which I'm going to do. The key is the word non-judgmental. If you're trying to meditate or be mindful and you can't get those thoughts out of your mind and you're like, I'm a terrible meditator, that's judgment. That's being really judgmental about yourself. All that mindfulness is being aware of the moment, being aware of the thoughts. And if your goal is to minimize thoughts, then great, just be aware of them. Open the door's open, the thoughts are going to come whether you want them to or not. But there's a quote that says, leave your front door and your back door open for thoughts. Let the thoughts come and go, just don't serve them tea. And we do a whole training on mindfulness with some different mindfulness exercises that you can try. And there's a lot of research here on the benefits of mindfulness, including enhancing the immune system. And so I encourage you to, check that out, but also realize that mindfulness can happen when you're doing other things. You can have mindful cooking, you can have mindful walking. It's just the awareness of your thoughts or of the present moment, including your senses, bringing you back to the reality of what you can see, feel, hear, taste, and touch. There are lots of ways to practice mindfulness and meditation, lots of apps. I think there are 12,000 meditation apps, one article that I read. And So I'm not going to endorse any right now, but there's lots of support if you would like guided meditation or guided mindfulness help. But especially in the midst of an ever-changing world where every time we open up a news app or our phones or our TV or computer, we're assaulted with more bad news that kind of inadvertently stresses us out. It's important to be able to return to the breath, return to the present moment, return to what you can control, and not be too stressed about all of the things that you cannot control, which is like an ever-growing list in this day and age. Okay, number 11. We're almost there. Social pets and gratitude. I could talk about these all day, and I lumped them all into one, which isn't totally fair. But basically, and we have a whole neuroscience training about the nervous system and the safe and social part of our nervous system. It's also called rest and digest, or tend and befriend. That's the calm, centered part of our nervous system, the parasympathetic mode, specifically the ventral vagal parasympathetic mode, where we can engage socially and get benefit from that social interaction. We can also respond to others with calm and equanimity because we are not stressed out. We're not in fight or flight. And that's what we get when we're with snuggling our cat or walking our dog or expressing gratitude, or if we're with social people that we like, maybe a spiritual community or our family or a workout or a yoga class. And when we practice these things, when we practice gratitude, and when we have social connection with people that share our values for whatever level, that gives us a safe feeling in our nervous system, which then helps us lower our cortisol, the stress hormone that naturally comes up when we're in fight or flight. And it helps us reverse the negativity bias in our brain. So we naturally have a negativity bias that's like, don't eat those berries, and this prairie has a lot of predators, and we remember things that are negative because we have to stay alive. But we often don't remember things that are specifically positive unless we make a practice of it. So I really encourage those gratitude practices because it changes our brains and it actually calms our nervous system, especially that social part. So if you're interested in this, we have a whole training on it. I love talking about polyvagal theory, so let's talk. Plus, I love cuddling my cats. Sometimes they come in during the trainings too. So essential oils. Here we get into slightly less scientific just because there's competing science on essential oils. There's a whole Netflix documentary about essential oils that I found very interesting. But basically, many essential oils can help us with certain bodily responses. Like we talked about the sleep aids. Lavender is very famous for helping relaxation. And if you're more relaxed, then you're going to have less stress, lower cortisol, lower inflammation, and greater immunity. So it might not be that the stinging nettle seed will prevent coronavirus, no, but this blend or these essential oils that we smell or that we rub on our skin, apparently they're not the best usually ingested. I mean, you can ingest them in moderation, but that's where the science is really in doubt. But for scents and other things, essential oils can be really helpful. And this is just one blend from a tea and tonic store that we like in DC. And then speaking of teas and tonics, these are things that actually are a little bit more studied and are sort of tried and true remedies. These are my kids many years ago who used to do fire cider shots with me, which is an old New England, couple decades, couple centuries old New England recipe of spicy apple cider vinegar. That's a great tonic for flu season. You can make your own garlic ginger lemonade with honey. And you can take immune boosting tonics like this is an elderberry tincture, echinacea. I have another little bottle. Ginger is famous for lots of things. Vitamin C, even large doses of vitamin C and zinc in the winter during flu season can be very helpful for immune function. So those are some options that you might want to try. Oh, I have the funniest story about Ayurveda now. Ayurveda is a 3,000 plus year old medicinal system from India. And I won't go too much into it, mostly because we don't have time, but also because I don't practice Ayurveda myself, but I have many friends who do, and I respect the balance that it seeks to achieve in both your body and your mental state. And that comes by usually identifying your dominant dosha. And the doshas are called Pitta, Kapha, or Vata. I am dominant Pitta, and then with a sub of Kapha for me. But we all have all these elements, and they change on different days. And then you use certain practices or spices or oils or foods to balance your doshas and to bring more harmony into your body. The funny story is that we have interns who are Masters of Public Health students from George Washington University, and they've been researching these immune boosters in part to provide more evidence-based work to this webinar that you're experiencing right now. And one of them was intending to look into essential oils, and she watched the Netflix thing. And then she started watching more of these Netflix series of Unwell. They're called Unwell. And she saw one, she said, "Susan, I can't believe you asked us to look into how do you pronounce it?" And I was like, "Oh, Ayurveda." And she was like, yeah. She was like, "Apparently you take this tea and then you throw up and you have hallucinations." And I was like, no, that's ayahuasca, which is a different thing that's not related to Ayurveda at all. So please don't make the same mistake that she did. And she's a Master of Public Health student, confusing Ayurveda and ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is great for some people. I am not recommending that for you to boost your immune system today. What I am recommending, though, is play. And this is the last one before we open it up for questions. And thank you for putting some things in the chat box. Check that out for some ideas of a great smoothie. Play is really important because it creates those endorphins that we talked about with laughter, and it sparks your imagination. And the state of play for humans is when you are fully present, right? That mindful state. You're full of joy. Like, play should bring you joy. It's not a chore. It's somewhat active, and you're moving, and it's spontaneous. You don't know how it's going to end up. So one way that I recommend, and I talk more about this in our Take 5 talk about taking brain breaks, is think back to how you played as a child. And if you're willing, you can share it in the chat box. When did you lose track of time? When did you cultivate that joy? When did you have active fun? Like, not just reading, like I did a lot of reading, but like, when were you active? And if you can share in the chat box, that'd be great. Because the point is that if we investigate how we played as a child when we weren't, being paid to do anything, we were just following our joy as children, and we were losing track of time because we were so present and so into it. For me, it was like riding my bike around the neighborhood, but it was also making up dances in the basement for my stuffed animals. And I could do that for hours with my, record player, which is what it was back then. So if you look at how you played as a child, how you lost track of time as a child, then you're going to have a clue as to what's going to bring you joy today. It took me a while to get back to dance as an adult, but when I did, I was like, whoa, this is a really important medicine for me. And it wasn't totally obvious because I hadn't been doing it for years as an adult. I had trained myself out of that source of joy. So if you look at what you did as a kid, maybe it was playing Legos, maybe it was building things, maybe it was taking things apart and putting them back together. Maybe it was going fishing or gardening, whatever it was that you did as a kid, maybe there are clues to what would bring you joy today. But be careful, one person's play is another person's torture. Not everyone gets joy from all of these things on the list, but some people do. And that's important. So find your tribe, find the other people who like the same thing you do so that you can cultivate more play, cultivate more joy, because that is super important to your immune system. Again, endorphins and lowered cortisol for that stress hormone, which is really important for our functioning. So those are the 15. I want to open it up for questions, and I'll stop recording before the questions so that you can have privacy there. But I did want to share that I post at Comfort Consulting and at Nonprofit Wellness on Instagram. You can join our email list or join one of our other trainings. We have some public trainings coming up starting October 27th. And there's the immune booster sheet again that you can also download from the website. So I'll stop sharing there, and I'm also going to stop recording. Bye, everybody who's watching this on replay. And